In 1964, Ray Mayfield had just resigned his position as pastor of First Baptist Conroe to work at Houston Baptist University. Brother Cliff Harrington became pastor in 1964 and was pastor for 19 years.
Dr. Harrington was the pastor, and when I first came in 71, I really liked his preaching. I liked his mannerisms. And didn't really get to know him, but he impressed me as a man of God and that had a vision for souls. And actually, he was probably the typical Baptist preacher, and that's what I admired in him.
When Cliff was pastor, I was younger, and so he struck me as a very serious person, and I always had to stand up straight and mind my P's and Q's when I was around Cliff, and because I knew my parents were watching. As I got to know Cliff over the years, not being a 6-year-old at church, you realize what a good sense of humor that he has, and just what a caring person. I left for 12 years to go to school in 1988, and when I came back in 2000, I hadn't been back for a couple of months. I don't even know if I'd been to church yet since moving back to town, and I was diagnosed with cancer, and I had surgery, and it was all very quick. I was diagnosed one day at surgery, like 2 days later, and hadn't even really talked to anyone about it. And I show up in the holding area right before surgery and look up, and there's Cliff Harrington. He just knows. And he's just always there. And at every moment for our family at a time of need, you look up and Cliff is there. And you just know he's going to be there.
Cliff was pastor when we joined, and it was a pleasure to watch Cliff baptize our son. Cliff is the kind of gentleman that if you were charged with defining the word pastor, you'd have to use Cliff's name in there somewhere, because Cliff is a guy that cares, and he was there. Cliff met the definition of the word pastor, and I admire that about him. I know Cliff is, 91 or so now, and it hadn't been that long ago. The last time I saw him out on the street, I was going into Home Depot, and he was coming out with a handful of plumbing tools to go fix a plumbing leak at home. And also, I have to say that Cliff today, in 2013, looks to me just like he did when we joined in 1971. He has not changed.
In 1970, First Baptist built a new sanctuary building, which also housed an office complex and several classrooms for small group Bible studies. 1975 saw the construction of an activities building, which included a basketball court.
I remember watching the gym go up. I remember when they poured the slab for the gym. It's been good to see the gym be an outreach to young people, and also as a facility for the men's power lunch. In the parking lot on the south side of the church, there was an old garage. It was 2-story that had a room up above, and it was called the Bridge, and that's where the youth would meet. I guess the building got so dangerous after so many years, we finally had to tear it down, but have fond memories of going over there with the youth many times to have their studies and Bible studies and retreats and so forth.
When Chuck Gartman came in as youth minister in 1977, he began many programs, including Disciple Now, a weekend program to show young people how to follow Christ daily. Somewhere
in high school, early high school, we had at this church Disciple Now 1. So I think at some point when you get to 20 or something, they just call it Disciple Now. They don't do the net numbers anymore, but I don't know how many we've had, but it was a new concept. We had Disciple Now 1. I think we tore the Raybuck's house apart that weekend. But Disciple Nows were fantastic. I'm glad we're still doing that. Chuck was very predictable, and he had a speech that he gave before every major function. Much like Alan's speeches now before we leave for camp and things like that. But Chuck always said, if you choose to march to the beat of a different drummer, we will show you the road home on which you can march at your parents' expense. We heard that a few times. As a matter of fact, after a few years, as soon as he started to say it, the entire auditorium would say it for him.
In 1984, Dr. Marshall Edwards of Columbia, South Carolina, came to be pastor. He was a charismatic speaker, and he drew large crowds.
Well, we were without a pastor for about 18 months, and then Marshall Edwards came. And he was a very dynamic personality. And the thing that I remember about him, he always made you feel like he was interested in what you were doing and what was going on in your life and in your personal opinions and things like that. He just had that approach and a kind of southerly gentleman type atmosphere about him that made you want to talk to him and be around him.
The increased growth of the church required additional educational space. A 3-story educational building was built in 1988.
That 3-story building really added a lot, because before that we were having split Sunday schools, some in the gym early and some late. We had some Sunday school classes. I'd have to drop my daughter off here at this campus and go down to Travis and have Sunday school down there. And so when they completed that building, it was great.
In 1994, First Baptist was looking for a gifted new pastor to guide them.